Center for the Ethiopian Educational Information and Communication Technology presents Educational Satellite Television Programs.
Hello, teacher. Hello, students. Welcome to today's lesson on the representation of data. In our last lesson, you learned about 3 random sampling techniques. These are techniques that can be used to take a sample of a population when it is impractical to take data from an entire population. Today, we will look at different ways and purposes of representing data. Are you ready, students? Let us begin. As you know, students, data on its own is not enough to be qualified as statistics. The data must be collected, edited, and organized in such a way that it has meaning. It usually needs to be put into a form such as a table, graph, or chart, which makes it easier to understand and interpret. In previous grades, you studied some forms, including frequency tables and histograms. Today, we will look at tabular representation and graphical representation and their respective strengths and weaknesses. When considering what kind of representation to use for data, there are 2 questions to consider. The first is, will this method allow for easy computational analysis and decision-making? And the second is, will this method provide clear information for public awareness or other less scientific purposes? One of the common ways to represent data is to use a table. Students, can you remember the definition of a frequency distribution table? Please take a minute to write down your answer. And then we will review the definition together.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
Hello, students. I am sure you remembered this definition. A frequency distribution table shows a list of all data values obtained and their respective frequencies. Here we see a frequency table created by a biologist who was measuring the heights of trees growing around a water source. The data values are the heights in centimeters found on the left. The frequency is on the right, showing the number of trees. By looking at this table, we can see that the majority of trees are between 180 and 199 centimeters tall. This kind of tabular representation is good at giving concise information, but it is not very interesting to look at. The other way of representing data is to use a graph. Graphic representations can include bar charts and pie charts. A bar chart is similar to a histogram, but it is capable of communicating more information. Students, please look at this example of a bar graph. It gives a great deal of information. By reading the bar chart, can you answer these questions? Is the overall number of livestock increasing or decreasing as time passes? Which livestock appears to have increased the most between the years 1997 and 2000? Please take a few minutes to find the answer, students. When you are finished, see what other questions you could solve by reading the bar chart.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
Hello again, students. How did you do? You should be able to tell by looking at the graph that every bar is getting higher and higher each year, which means the number of livestock is increasing every year. The second question is a little harder to answer, but it appears that the number of mules has more than doubled between 1997 and 2000. It went from about 2,000 up to about 7,000. This appears to be the largest increase. You can see, students, that bar graphs allow you to easily see the frequencies and values of different population samples. Another graphical representation that we mentioned is a pie chart. This chart is called a pie chart because it resembles a dessert pie. Each value is represented by a different color, and the value's frequency is shown by how big a slice of pie it represents. Students, if I give you some data, do you think you can represent it in a pie chart? Let us try. Out of 100 people surveyed, 30% said that injera was their favorite food. 50% said that dorowet was their favorite food. And 20% said that kitfo was their favorite. Please draw a pie chart to represent this data.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
Welcome back, students. I am sure that was not too difficult. Your pie chart should appear something like this. Since half of the people surveyed preferred dorowet, we draw a diameter of the circle and label 1/2 dorowet. Next, if we do not have a way to measure the portions accurately, we can estimate that 30% will be a little over half of the remaining pie. We draw another line and label the larger portion injera and the smallest portion kitfo. Even if you did not have access to the actual numbers, you could easily see that half the people surveyed prefer dorowet over any other food. Graphical representations have many advantages over tabular representations. They are eye-catching and can convey messages easily. They are helpful for remembering facts because their visual impressions are retained in your mind for a long time. Graphs make comparison easy. You can quickly and accurately compare different data and sometimes notice relationships that were not apparent at first glance. Remember, students, that less is often more. It can be tempting to put all kinds of data into one graph, but this can distort or confuse the information. Today, you have learned about tabular and graphical representation of data. You have identified the advantages of each method, and you have practiced reading tables and charts. In our next lesson, we will learn more about constructing and interpreting statistical graphs. Until then, thank you, teacher. Thank you, students.